Hello, beautiful people. You're listening to the Communal Table podcast, part of Food and Wine Pro. I am your host, Kat Kinsman, and my guest today is Sam Hellman-Mass we're talking about your role here at Suerte in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, really happy to be here this morning and catching up with you.
I would say welcome, but I'm actually sitting in your restaurant.
I can welcome you. That would be more appropriate.
It's during South by Southwest here in Austin, and we met yesterday after a panel I was on about mental health. And just to set the scene, we're in this incredibly gorgeous, long, beautiful dining room that you're going to know a lot more about, because by the time this launches, you will know that this is one of Food and Wine's best new restaurants of 2019. Congratulations.
Thank you so much to the whole team. I'm just really proud of everyone and the work they put in, and making good food every day and giving people good experiences here. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, the first thing that happened, I walked through the door and it's, showed up here at 8:30 in the morning. It's really a lovely place to be here during the day. And you would think, a restaurant would be quiet at 8:30 in the morning, but no, the kitchen is bustling and hustling. Could you talk a little bit about what's going on in there right now?
I'm glad we took a few minutes to just say hi to the folks that are getting to work in the morning, making all this stuff, because I hope you could feel just there's a good energy of, the place is humming and everyone's kind of doing their thing and is happy to be here. No one's stressed out. Everyone's in a good spot. And yeah, I don't know, just getting ready for the day has that, South by is a really fun time. There's lots of people in town in the food world and all the films going on. So I think it's a lot of fun, and the restaurant it always has a good energy, but South by brings a whole different energy to the whole city, and we get a bit of that, so it's fun.
So we, it's funny. We talked through kind of what everybody is doing back there. Can you talk a little bit about the process that started last night that is going on today?
Last night, the making the masa for the tortillas. Yeah, for sure. So
this does not I'll just note this. Maybe this happens in Austin. Does not happen at restaurants in New York City so much.
The foundation of a lot of our cooking is taking, what I think is the backbone of Mexican cuisine and trying to pay attention to every detail on the process from, where the dried corn is coming from to the end. And so what we do is we get the corn from Barton Springs Mill and Richardson Farms, both heirloom corns grown in Texas. We boil it overnight with calcium oxide and water. That process is called nixtamalization.
I love that word.
It's a super, super big word. And then we let it sit for 6 to 8 hours or overnight, really. And in the morning, we rinse the corn and then grind it through the molino, which is a wet mill that uses 2 volcanic stones to grind the corn. And then we add a little bit of water and salt, and that's the masa. And then, from that kind of beautiful product, we make tortillas, clayudas, quesadillas, sopes, pupusas, memelas, huaraches, tlacoyos, like all the vocabulary of many of the vocabulary of Mexican cuisine is things that are made from masa. So that's a little about what we're passionate about.
And this is Mexican food, but you're using Texas ingredients. This is not Tex-Mex, but at the same time,
so when people ask me what kind of food is it, I think the short answer is that it's Mexican food. But Fermín Nuñez, who's the chef of Suerte, and the kitchen team, really, they bring their own creativity. Fermín and I traveled around. Fermín is Mexican. He's born in Torreon and has spent a lot of his life traveling between Mexico and Texas. We traveled a bit around Mexico. We had the chance, before we opened, to go to Oaxaca, Puebla, Cholula, San Cristobal, Mérida, Mexico City. He went to some other places as well, like Toluca, and not with the idea of copying what anyone was doing down there, but I think your ability to create is always inspired by the experiences you have. So we were just in search of delicious things that we were excited by. And so, Suerte is a Mexican restaurant, but it's in East Austin, and a lot of my background in the industry is as a chef, and it was always very obvious to me that your meal starts with your shopping list of where you're getting the vegetables and fruits and meats and fish from. So we pay a lot of attention to cooking seasonally because that's where the most tasty things come from. So we combine this, masa that we make every day and tortillas that are pressed to order and served warm from the first time they're cooked with Mexican cooking techniques and Fermín and the team's creativity and the local ingredients, and that's Suerte.
Oh my God. I was walking through, you introduced me to the team this morning, and it's great. I felt bad that we had to turn down the Ramones that everybody's kind of jamming out to.
It's still going a little bit, just a little quieter. But.
And it's, it's a really good vibe that is set in there. And I liked that, so we met yesterday. I was, lucky enough to be on a panel about empathetic kitchens and mental health. And something we had talked about in the pre-interview of it was about setting a tone for the kitchen, about you walk in every day and say hello to people. You look them in the eye, and you did that. And it was such an indicator to me that you immediately said, come on, let's meet the team. You said hello to everybody, and everybody's engaged in their task, but with each other, and it was just a really good vibe.
We work hard on it, and it's not perfect. There's 60 people that work here.
Yeah.
So there's always something that needs our attention to try to keep everything going as well as it can, and to make sure everyone is in a position to be a successful member of the team.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect, but I think that part of it I really enjoy. The people part of it can be challenging and also really rewarding to watch people grow. And we pay attention to it.
Yeah, and it shows because you can tell, I talk to a lot of chefs, and you can tell the ones who give credit where credit's due, because they're not afraid to shout out hey, here's the person who makes the thing, and you should know them, and you should know their name. And that is a really important thing that I think gets washed out in a lot of kind of narrative around food. Yes, there are the people who are up front, but then there are hands back there making those tortillas. Can you talk a little bit about how you found the people to work in that kitchen?
The first woman who helped us make tortillas, her name was Leticia. I haven't thought about it in a little bit. I hope she was here for a little while and moved back to Honduras. And I think I don't know, Fermín put an ad out on somewhere, and she just kind of showed up and had never made tortillas before in her life.
Oh, wait. And she's
we had this day when we got the whole opening team and the staff, and everybody stood up one at a time and said their name and what they do in the restaurant. And so it was my name is Sam, and I'm the founder and started the restaurant, and Fermín the chef, and one at a time. Who they're I'm so and so, I'm a waiter, I'm a bartender. And it got around to her, and she said, she speaks a little bit of English, said, my name is Leticia, and then she switched to Spanish. She goes, and yo hago las tortillas. And everybody started clapping for her, and she got really teary-eyed, because I don't think she had felt the pride of a job and feeling so valued like that. But I hope that she comes back to work one day. She has a son, and that she went home to look after. And she's just one of these magical people that had such a positive attitude, and that was right away clearly very smart and competent and good at whatever task came her way. So I think time and again, for us, and I hope if you're doing something good, that somehow the right person shows up at the right time. And we were lucky enough that this lady Leticia just walked in and was I'm gonna do it, and she then trained some of the other folks that made tortillas for us. And so we met all the folks that make tortillas. I don't think there's one way, just different. Someone knows someone, or an ad that we put out. And they're really, I think making masa is an artisan craft that's as nuanced and challenging as making world-class pasta in a Michelin-starred restaurant, or naturally leavened bread, or sushi. And we try to put that much care into it,
So let's actually talk about that for a second, because I know it's different here in Austin because where you are geographically and because of the population, but you get a little bit further away, and people have a notion of Mexican food as this cheap thing.
That's still way here too.
Okay, so how do you get people to value this thing that for some reason of ignorance of bad marketing, something like that they don't see as an artisan craft?
One thing I want to say is just that I'm by far not the first person to kind of blaze that trail, that there's been a lot of really talented chefs and writers. Like I went to the screening of Diana Kennedy's movie last night.
Oh,
that was screened
yeah.
for South by Southwest. Amazing story. I think she's been telling that story about how valuable and precious Mexican food is for many years. Lots of people in Mexico and in America, you know, folks like Rick Bayless, Alex Stupak has been very vocal about the value of or the perception or lack thereof from some people that Mexican food is cheap, like you say. And for us, it's like we kind of try to be a little not so in your face about it, where, I don't know, I guess I'll get there in a roundabout way of saying, when trying to talk to people about why we source ingredients from local farmers, you can beat people with the truth hammer of like, it's
Right.
better for you, it's better for the world and the soil and the environment and the local economy. And that truth hammer just makes people feel like shit about themselves.
Yeah.
And it's a much more compelling hook into why people should eat local food, to be like, here's a taco.
Right.
Don't tell them this carrot is from this farm, this is, but like, and when they eat it and they're like, this is so good, why?
Yeah.
Then that's your hook, and to say, well, the tortilla is so good because the corn is heirloom corn that's different from, you know, most of the the corn that's turned into high fructose corn syrup for sodas and stuff. And so for us, with showing the people that Mexican food is valuable and as valuable as anything else, just based on the quality of what you eat, is like, we just try hard to make it really good, and we hope you like it. And
Yeah.
certainly we get a few comments of people that are like, can't believe it's so expensive, I like the taco truck much better than this place. And people are entitled to have that opinion. It's a subjective world, and folks are entitled to like what they like. But I think we just try really hard to make it delicious and enjoyable, and I think more people recognize that than don't.
I wonder. I'm fairly sure that sometimes people devalue the food because they devalue the people behind it, and they devalue immigrants. They devalue the human lives behind that.
It's always been very important to me, like in these challenging times politically, that it's like, I want everyone to be able to come together in this place and like see how fun it is to enjoy delicious food made by people that care, people that may not be from here, and make it a place for love, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's always such a complicated thing, and I think honestly, especially with this, didn't mean to get political here, but
Yeah.
but it's unavoidable, and I guess we have to talk about it. We often run into the situation where people like love the food, don't love the people. And, maybe it is one of those things where there's, some sort of bridge, that we get wrapped up in this touchy-feely notion of like, oh, food brings everybody together. And in some ways it does, but it's also a really, I think, a good place to have a conversation around this. And we're better than a taco, honestly.
Yeah, whatever your political views are, I hope that this is a place that makes people feel like food and culture and cuisine, and enjoying that, it makes your life richer.
Yeah. And, it's funny. Austin is a place where a lot of people come together for a whole lot of different reasons. I'm here for South by Southwest, and, and I've only ever experienced it through the lens of South by Southwest. I've come here a few different times for jobs, and I, pop into the restaurants and stuff. Is it a town where, this kind of food that you're doing is valued, or have you had to train people sort of into, mindset of like, you sit down and you have the taco and you have the, the other food, as opposed to like grabbing it from a truck or any?
I think that it's a pretty approachable, fun place.
Yeah.
It's not the cheapest restaurant, but it's not crazy expensive and prohibitively, like the barrier to entry to come eat here is nothing insane.
I'm looking around. This is not a fancy neighborhood. I'm looking out the window, and there's construction going on outside, and it's a really beautiful space that seems like, it has, probably warehouse roots, or was this built from scratch, or was it?
So a bit of the story of Austin, east of I-30. This is called East Austin.
Okay.
Part of the history of Austin is that 35 was the line of segregation.
Oh wow. Okay.
Where if you were, and I don't know all the history, so this is as I understand it, and I'd love to continue learning myself, but if you were black or brown and you lived west of 35, the city would not give you city services. So this became, the Hispanic and black cultural neighborhood of Austin. But you can see the proximity from downtown is so close that it's, it's changed rapidly over the last 10, 15 years, 5, 10, 15 years. And I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people would have thought that, us opening what a lot of people consider to be an expensive Mexican restaurant in East Austin would have been an easy target. I think people recognize that we're putting a lot of heart and soul into this, and most people appreciate that. I think Fermín, being Mexican and living in Austin, it's hard to say we're doing something with bad intentions,
Yeah, no.
And the food is, it's not stuff that you need to put your thinking cap on to enjoy, but we put a lot of creativity into the salsas and the dishes.
Yeah.
But it's not intimidating or like a mental exercise of like, what am I eating? It's just, I think, a really fun place to be.
Yeah.
And a delicious place to be.
Well, and let's talk about this place too, because also when I walked in, you were telling me the story of, things on the walls and objects and things, and they're all talk about how you were saying that you and Fermín traveled and met people, and their hands are in this restaurant in a really important way. Talk me through some objects.
So the food is a story of Mexico, inspiration, and East Austin and the team we have. And I think the space tells a little bit of the same story, where in kind of creating a space that was a Mexican restaurant, but this is a modern building. It used to be called Dario's, and it was from the 70s. The building was built in the 70s, and it was kind of like a monstrous CMU brick rectangle, and worked with a great design team, architects Matt Garcia, Bart Watley, and a woman named Allison Burke on collaborating on some of the design. And I was really intimidated about doing something that was modern design, because the projects that I've been a part of before were all reclaimed wood, and I was like, it has to be recycled materials. And Matt pushed me really hard about like not making this place be the same, and I didn't want a modern space to feel like cold and not full of life. Some people do that really well, but sometimes they can be a little austere. And for us, that came down to working with people that we met while traveling in Mexico, that, if you make beautiful ceramics in Mexico, it may not have to look like a traditional, what people think of as the kind of cliche Mexican patterns, because if you make it in Mexico, by virtue of that, it's Mexican.
Right.
So if you go to a restaurant in Mexico City, you can just do design without being like overly Mexican. But in the U.S., a lot of places, borrow from, and no judgment, but just, I think this place we're doing a little bit of something different. And we've worked with a lot of talented artisans, from our friend Arturo that weaves fabric in Oaxaca that was actually designed by a woman in upstate New York named Sarah Burks. And, ceramics made by a friend of ours in Oaxaca, and a lot of glassware blown out in Hidalgo by people that we met, and then collaborating with artists in East Austin, like my friend Aaron, who did the door, and Brockett, who did all the custom bar stools, and another person named Mark, who did the tabletops. And so just working with people that are now friends that I think collaborated on what is a really fun space.
Let's talk about this light fixture that's above our heads.
So we bought all these old mezcal jugs, or garrafones is the word in Espanol, and we bought them at like flea markets in Oaxaca. And my wife is from Tampico, which is funny. People find out that I'm married to Roxana, who is Mexican, and that all makes sense to them. It's like, oh, you started a Mexican restaurant because you married a woman who's Mexican, which is funny because that's not how it happened.
Tell me your love story.
I was already like super obsessed with Mexican food, and we met at a party, and so we bought all these old mezcal jugs in Oaxaca and shipped them to the border. And Roxana had a friend that lives in Laredo that has a logistics company, and they crossed the stuff on the border. That's what they do as a logistics company. And we had a friend who has a food distribution company called Farm to Table, and we borrowed a box truck. One of his delivery trucks drove to Laredo and picked up like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then a local fabricator named Litmus is their company. They did all the metal work and turned the objects that we brought up from Oaxaca into a light. And there's little LEDs inside the, like he designed it. And so, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's, again, I wish, maybe I hope we're painting a decent word picture for you of the space. The fabric is so evident throughout. It's on panels. That might be also for sound that is.
Yeah.
Stuff.
All the art on the, well, it has become the art on the wall, but it's backed with acoustical material, and again, a true collaboration there where it was kind of noisy when we first opened, and definitely wanted to solve that. And my architect and good friend Matt Garcia came up with the concept of these panels on the wall and using different fabrics. And then we reached out to Sarah, the woman who designed the fabrics that were produced in Mexico, and we found the designs. And then my friend Brockett, who's the fabricator, like made the wooden frames, bought the acoustical material, stretched the fabric over it, and it's the art on the wall. I think they turned out really cool.
Yeah, I love that when, I love Bauhaus design and form and function. It's, and that seems like that's really a thoughtful element of this place.
I think that's a part of opening a restaurant where, like, you can't do every detail ahead of time. Like, we didn't know what the art on the wall was going to be, and nor did we have, like, the budget to go out and, like, tell someone, like, let's put some really cool art on the wall. But it turned into this, which I think is really fun and definitely helps with the sound when there's 150 people in here.
Wow, yeah. You said opening a restaurant, so let's talk about where you came from.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Well, where is the first place you cooked?
First place I cooked ever. Let me think about that. I think the Ground Round in Needham, Massachusetts, if you've ever heard of the Ground Round.
I sure have, yeah.
Was the first place that I cooked.
How old were you?
16.
Okay. And what made you do
Actually, well, that and a place called the Green Street Grill from a chef named Mark Romano, who now has a couple of restaurants. My mom was a mental health professional at Cambridge City Hospital, and she had her friend's wife's husband's brother owned this restaurant in Cambridge called the Green Street Grill in Central Square, and they were serving Jamaican food. And I loved cooking since I was like 14 or 15.
Okay.
And they were like, I wasn't a particularly good student, and I had all this passion. And my mom was like, go do something you like. Or I wanted to do something, and they were just happy to see me apply myself to anything. And so I would take the train to go work for free one day a week when I was in high school, to work for Mark Romano, like peeling plantains and putting rice and beans on the plate or whatever. Yeah. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I wonder how he saw me. It was like some kid just like taking the train in who didn't know anything. But I guess it didn't take me that long to be useful enough that I wasn't wasting his time.
Yeah, not in the way.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there?
So I grew up in Newton, which is just outside of Boston. I did culinary arts in high school, and then worked, the Ground Round, the Green Street Grill. I used to help East Coast Grill catering. That was a lot of fun. That's pretty well-known. Chef Chris Schlesinger owned that place for a long, long time. Then I worked in Chicago a little bit.
Where were you there?
Spiaggia.
Oh, yeah. So many good people have come through him.
I worked there for a summer as an extern in the banquets for Missy Robbins.
Yeah, I am a huge Missy Robbins fan.
She's amazing and was an incredible chef when I was there, and I was super lucky to have crossed paths with her for a brief time.
I used to work upstairs from a Voce, so I got to know Missy really well. She's killing it in New York.
So killing it. And yeah, I went to college in Boston and studied finance, and always with the goal of like trying to open my own restaurant one day. And that was the first time in my life in school that I like applied myself, because I was like, I'm here because I want to be, and because this is furthering what I say I want to do, which is opening a restaurant. And so I worked in the industry in the summers.
Yeah.
And I went to school, and after college, I took a job working in the front of the house for a really busy Italian restaurant in the south end of Boston called Stella. Left, moved to Aspen, got a job at the Little Nell Hotel, which was a lot of fun. Very lucky to cross paths with some great chefs there. Ryan Hardy, who's in New York City. And
on the panel yesterday was Andy Chabot had worked there.
And Steve Redzikowski was a big mentor from Denver and Boulder. And then moved down here to help Bryce open Barley Swine almost 10 years ago, the small one on South Lamar. And then I was day-to-day chef there, and we opened that business with very little money. So I put a little bit of money in, so it was a small investor. And then we opened Odd Duck with 4 other partners And then I stepped outside of that partnership to start Suerte.
So you're not the chef here.
Not the chef here.
How's that feel?
It feels great. I mean, I loved cooking, and it gave me so much for a long, long time. And I think I'll always partially identify myself, perhaps, as a chef. But I was... Well, firstly, I can say Fermín has taken the food here far better than I could have.
Yeah.
He's such an inspiring person and a great leader and a great chef. And very lucky that, you know, I had the dream of starting a restaurant based around making masa from heirloom corn, and like, so this place that we're in was for sale,
Yeah.
the building and the property, for a while, and I was looking for real estate to do this project, and went here for an art show for East Austin Studio Tours. And I wrote it off because I was like, it's too big. It's in really bad condition. The landlord, it was for lease or for sale. They weren't, it was expensive. I was like, yeah, like can't do anything there. Went here for this art show and was like, man, this place has good soul. Like I love the location. I'd never been inside. I'd just been out from outside. And I was like, it has good bones. Like I feel like this could be great. So I made an offer to buy the property. And we called the broker who was selling it. They said, it's been on the market for 6 months. We have 3 other offers, so if you're serious, you have to give us the offer tomorrow because we're going to decide on Monday. This was like on a Friday. So the broker wrote the offer up for $5,000 over the asking price. All I had was the earnest money to sign the contract.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay.
The seller accepted my offer because he owned some other property in the area and had heard of the other restaurants I was a part of.
Okay.
And thought that that I was possibly going to do something good here that would be good for the neighborhood. And once he picked the offer, all I had was the earnest money, and like, I don't know if you know from buying a house or how all that works. Like, I basically had 45 days before all my earnest money went hard, and if I didn't come up with all the money to close in the property, I'd lose basically all the money I had saved, and that was really stressful. I got physically sick. I was like,
yeah, let's talk through
trying
that.
to march down to the finish line of like doing it, but at the time I didn't have a chef, and I was like, this is what I say that I wanted with my life since I was 15 was to own a restaurant, and I was like, if I'm not going to force myself to do this opportunity, I'm going to regret it forever because I don't know if I'm going to get this chance again. And before we circle back, and I'm curious to answer whatever questions you have about what that time was like, but you know, I think it was very lucky that I started talking to Fermín after I put the close on the deal to buy the property. I pretty much immediately sat down with Fermín and was like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And I think it's really rare when you find that like his dream, the food that he wanted to cook, like creative Mexican food, masa with local ingredients, was like really the same as what I saw for this place. And so I think this is also his dream in many ways, and I'm so just excited for him and to see where he's at and all the great, you know, things he's doing.
How did you come together with him?
So in the early days of Barley Swine, he was the sous chef at La Condesa, which was another well-known restaurant. He had a good job. Didn't want to leave that job. We were never hiring. The original Barley Swine was so small. There was no like job openings, but he kind of wanted in on what we were doing. Yeah. Just wanted to like be in on it, and he would come and stage or work for free on his day off just to hang and see what we were up to. And I remember like sitting outside and having a beer after work and just talking with him, and then he went on to help Rene Ortiz, another well-known chef, open Laundrette, and just a few people like left Odd Duck to help open that restaurant, and he just became clear that he was different, you know? Yeah. Talented, special guy.
Partnerships are fascinating because when it really gels, but it takes work to have a partnership. How did the two of you, because, you know, this is part of, you know, we've launched Food and Wine Pro, which is for people in business and things. How do you manage that partnership day to day? Because you can have all the respect in the world. You can have, you can have a friendship, you can have a business partnership, but at the end of all of this, it has to work for the business. How do you negotiate conflict when this happens?
We just get along pretty well. I mean, we both care about each other, so it starts there, that like we both want the best for each other individually and for the restaurant. And sharing that common goal is like, that's just very clear that that's what we care about is, everybody that works here, including ourselves in the place. Fermín's a very relaxed person, and he solves problems and figures stuff out, and I think he appreciates where my heart is and always trying to push and make this place better. And I think I've learned my strengths and weaknesses over time. I think a weakness is I can be annoying. I get obsessed with things, and sometimes he doesn't have time to talk to me about whatever it is that's whatever it is that I'm on that day that I really want to talk about. But he's just really graceful about one thing I learned from him is no matter what anyone brings him, he's always just very graceful about how he responds and the energy he puts back into it. So I don't know, we got a good thing going.
Let's come to that word grace, because that is not usually a word that is associated with restaurants and restaurant culture, but there's no reason it shouldn't be. What is the role of grace in managing a team and having a team come together?
I think the more I manage or lead or talk and help or deal with people, humans, is I think the thing that often gets the best result is if you can just clearly say what you want someone to do in words, and leave the emotion or the intensity or that stuff out of it as much as possible, and just I don't know, doing that effectively. Maybe you could use the word grace for that. I'm getting better at it. It's something I work on a lot, but just saying if you can find a way to articulate what you want someone to do or change or do more of or do less of, so that they hear it the way you want them to, that works. And grace as well in terms of the kitchen or serving or bartending. I think part of the restaurant business is I think to be really great, you have to find joy in these repetitive tasks and finding a way to do it better every time, even after you've done it every day for years. And I love all the manual labor of restaurant stuff. I love slicing 50 pounds of onions for caramelized onions, or polishing glassware, or bussing tables and wiping tables off. And doing, when you see someone that's really good at whatever their part of their craft is in the business, I think you see them move with grace.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, I keep referring to this essay that Ashley Christensen wrote, but it was such a powerful thing about management and accepting your vulnerabilities and stuff. But a lot of it was about, she's often talked about people get promoted out of the thing that they're good at. And sadly, they, as she says, they are promoted to their point of incompetence or something, when really it should be celebrated. If you are a person who is a craftsperson and artisan who is really good at doing that same thing every day. So how do you celebrate that? The people who, they are the person who makes, the masa, they are the person who makes the tortillas, they are the person who does this particular thing and do it well. How do you keep them happy in doing that thing and not, you want people to grow, obviously, if they want to be somebody who moves up in restaurants, maybe wants to have something of their own. Can you talk about identifying the people who are, very content in doing the thing that they are versus, identifying that person who wants, hey, I want to move up on the line, I want to do this, help teach me?
I think everybody's different. That can be tough when someone's really valuable in something that they're doing and they're super good at it, and they should, I think one is you tell them how much you appreciate them.
Yeah.
The way you framed it, people get promoted to the point of incompetence is I don't know, I think that can be tricky because you want people to grow, but you also want them to be in a position to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's not always a bad thing when you promote someone that's their first time being a sous chef. That's a hard role.
Yeah.
When you have to change your mindset from I'm going to be the best at what I'm responsible for to I can have the greatest impact if I improve the skills of the people around me. And a lot of times when people are in that position as a sous chef for the first time, they get very frustrated that they're not getting the response that they would be if they were the one doing everything.
Yeah.
And I think you got to hang in there with people. You got to stick with them when they're having challenges, because maybe they'll push through that wall and go from incompetent to super competent.
Yeah.
but you gotta, sometimes that can be, and there's no formula for that. It's sometimes it's talking to that chef who's having a problem in their own head about feeling like the people aren't listening to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's talking to the line cook about how they're taking the feedback from the sous chef. And I think you gotta, at least for us, we have one restaurant. We just announced that we're working on another project.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It'll be a bit because it just takes a while, but we're around here a lot.
Yeah.
Paying attention to like who needs what where does our focus need to be? Does it need to be on this person or that person, or sourcing or changing the menu? And usually there's some part of the people that work here that needs a bit of our attention to like keep everyone in a position to be doing great.
Yeah. So I have a friend who's got a couple of restaurants, and he was realizing there was some conflict in the kitchen, and they were sort of unable to sort it out. And they finally actually got somebody. There were two guys who just couldn't get along. And finally they got somebody in their account, and they have a mental health counselor like actually on staff, which I think is incredible.
For sure.
Yeah, they realized they needed to get somebody in there who was bilingual. And it turned out that these two guys were just from different neighboring towns in Mexico, and there was historical beef between their towns. And like once they sorted that out, totally fine and amazing. And then they made it a requirement that there were certain key people on staff who were bilingual, because that's just the fair thing to do. And I noticed as we're walking through there, different languages being spoken and things. So talk to me about like the importance of, especially being in Austin in Texas, of like having a bilingual kitchen.
I think it's hugely important.
Yeah.
My Spanish is okay and it's getting better, but when I communicate with folks who Spanish is their first language, I can't do it as well as Fermín, who's Fermín is super bilingual. He speaks fluent English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to lead and help someone, the language is huge, because there's so much nuance in communication of like how someone receives the feedback about whether it's their behavior or the task they're performing, but so they hear it in a positive way. Like I think about how hard I try to make the right word choices when I do that in English, and I don't have the command of the Spanish language to do that in Spanish. And so depending on the level of the conversation, I'll always bring someone in who really can communicate on that level if it's something that's a bit delicate. Yeah,
it's just something that I think about a lot, and I after sort of hearing that story, and I was thinking it needs to be more supported in kitchens, because like most kitchens I imagine in New York quadlingual or something like that, and having a common ground for that is so important. And I've been in I haven't traveled super extensively, but like when I've been in kitchens in Copenhagen, it's so interesting because like
people from all over the world, right?
Yeah, and so you have to sort of figure out like what that common ground is, but it's so important to be sort of met on your level too. So yeah, I was curious to see like working on your Spanish and things, because like the onus, I feel like the onus is on the like on the management, on the owners and stuff like that, to learn the language of the people working for them. And
learning language is challenging.
It's so
to get
hard.
to it on that level where you can have nuanced conversations with people is, I feel like the only thing that would take my Spanish to the next level is I would have to live in Mexico or somewhere that speaks Spanish, because I'm stuck on this point where like you can't really learn how to talk like on that level from an academic standpoint. You got to learn it to really like be in it. So if I could move to Mexico for 6 months, I think I'd speak. Yeah,
it's something that I always think that I want to challenge myself on. I always kick myself for taking high school French instead of Spanish. I'm like, what the hell did I?
I mean, it's like it's never
fit with my class
never
schedule.
too late, but I feel like it's hard. But the other side of like how amazing it is that people find a way to communicate even if you don't speak the language. Like
let's talk about
for
kitchen
sure
language.
Challenges that, but like when your back's against the wall and that's the only choice you have is to figure out how to work with someone, like you find a way.
Body language.
Through body language, gestures, showing like whatever words you do know in common.
Yeah.
Like Google Translate, like whatever it is, like you figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, I think there's so much nonverbal communication that goes on in a kitchen that's got to be so important and thoughtful. Let's talk about mental health here, because you had mentioned yesterday when we met that you were doing something really pretty special for your year. We're coming up on, by the time you hear this, this will have passed, but we're coming up on your year anniversary, and you're doing something really special for it.
Yeah, this has been an incredible, year for us, getting the restaurant open and getting recognized successfully by some really things that are a dream for anyone who's in the industry. And I wanted to celebrate, it's been a great year for us by giving back to some things that we believe in. And it was important to me to do something in Mexico and something in Austin. So in Mexico, we're throwing a party to celebrate our first year, March 25th. We invited some friends from other restaurants in town to collaborate on tacos with us, and a good friend named Clemente Castillo, who is the lead singer of a band called Jumbo, and he has some solo projects. He's going to spin vinyl records and have a bolero trio at night, and we're going to have beer, wine, and cocktails and throw a big party.
I wish I was here like a week or two
later.
later.
We're going to sell tickets to the door for $50. I'll fly you back if you can make it. And we're going to raise money for something in Mexico and something in East Austin. In Mexico, there's a woman who started a mezcal company called Real Minero, where they make amazing mezcal, and she's starting a library in Oaxaca called Biblioteca El Rosario, and we're going to support the library, which is trying to improve education and access to education in rural communities in Oaxaca. Her name is Graciela Angeles, and she's a very inspiring lady. And in Austin, it just kind of became something that we're going to try to support mental health for people in restaurants and bars in Austin, inspired by two longtime customers of every restaurant in Austin named Mike and Sherry. Their family in many ways is the extended family of the people. They go out to eat every night, and they have relationships and friendships with all the people that work in the restaurants. And we had someone going through a challenging time here, and I reached out to Mike and said, hey, can you talk to this person and see how we can get them performing at their best again? Because I know them really well for many, many years, and I want to see this work, and I know they're capable of being outstanding. And Mike really helped this person, and for me that was an eye-opener to say hey, and in the year that we've been open, there's been many people on our staff that have had big-time life challenges that we've done our best to be a positive anchor of support for folks in, whatever they're going through.
Okay, let's break that down, because again, people listening to this, they want to do this for their restaurants. They want to do this for the employees. They don't know how. They're afraid to have the conversation. They don't know, okay, we've had the conversation. How do I support this person? Without identifying anybody, how do you address a situation?
Well, I think one, just in terms of, if as a manager or a leader in any restaurant or chef, front of the house, you always get better results, I feel like, from people if they can tell that first you care about them as a person before about their job performance. And whether or not someone gets to continue working here because of something going on outside of their life, they should just know first and foremost that the most important thing to me is that you're good, And I still don't know how. I don't think I have an answer for how to be there or help people, but I think
what have you done?
Whenever stuff comes up, you sit down and you're like, what's up? Let's talk. And that's always, every conversation like that is different, but I think you got to listen to what's going on in someone's life and see, one, this is a business. We can't be everyone's parents.
Right.
But we can be good friends, we can be good listeners, we can be supportive, we can try to help people as much as we can, and that's what the intention is.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it's complete or that we've done it. It's just, we're always just one at a time trying to do our best by everybody.
What does help look like? Is it a day off? Is it hey, here's some money? Is it hey, maybe go talk to this counselor?
Any of those could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was, it's funny. I've been doing interviews around town, these podcasts and stuff. And Austin is I've only been here a couple times, but when I have come, I have absolutely fallen in love with the chef community, the restaurant community here. The first time I came here was during South by Southwest some years back, and we threw, I was at CNN at the time, and we used to host these dinners we would invite people, not tell them what it was for, and have a chef and sit down around a table, get together, musicians, artists, activists, farmers, producers, CNN talent, and have a conversation about what food meant in that particular city. And I came here. I asked my friend Brian Caswell, who do you know? Like great chef from Houston. He's been a pal of mine for a long time, and said, who do you have in Austin? And he said Zach Northcutt, who I don't remember where he was working at the time, but really, really great thing. And he said, this isn't an Austin meal unless I have my friends cook with me. And he had somebody make the tortillas. Somebody else was making, the meat, the vegetables, all the different courses. Had another bartender come in. Had Philip Spear was doing one of the desserts, and Plinio, like totally blanking on his last name. Did another one of the desserts. But it really felt like this communal effort. And I know some people in that story I've just told have been through some stuff since then. And
I think all of that is underlying the need and the desire that I and we have to, as we think about celebrating our 1 year, to do something that gives back to the community of really talented people, from dishwashers to line cooks to servers and bartenders and front of the house managers. Like, restaurants get asked all the time to donate or participate in charity events, but and in other cities, there's people that are, I think it's a wave that's coming up, as you're a huge part of it with Chefs with Issues, but like doing something for the people that work in the industry. Yeah. We were very fortunate to meet. I met the folks from Capital Area Counseling, which is an income-based mental health
talk about this. This is amazing.
And they do income-based counseling where they sustain themselves totally through their operations. So they're not in this constant fundraising mode. Their appointments range from $10 to $60. It's a sliding scale based on how much income you have. And it's people that need their credit hours for their certifications or getting doctorate degrees. And they supervise those hours and are able to help a lot of people. And they already have a lot of people in the restaurant and bar industry. And
That's so important. Can you say the name again of it?
Capital Area Counseling. And so we're going to donate money that's kind of earmarked to people that work in the restaurant and bar industry in Austin, with the hope of perhaps turning it into a larger endeavor inspired by Mike and Sherry, and maybe even named after their the legacy that they've started without even knowing that they were doing it, just by being there and being supportive and a cheerleaders for people in the industry and champions of the people that do the work day to day. And I'm hopeful that we can throw a party and do one thing that's good, and maybe it'll go into something bigger that can help more people.
I mean, I am blown away by Austin in that particular way, because people take care of each other in such a fundamental way. From the people in the restaurant and bar community here do, and people talking about the check-ins, and everybody's worked together at some point, and and people have been through some stuff, public and private, and and I think have really stepped up in a really a meaningful way. And it was so interesting that you said that it was regulars who were doing this, because I talk to a lot of restaurants around the country, and they say, well, what do? We don't have the money for this. And I tell them, like, one of your regulars is definitely a therapist or a counselor of some sort. Matt Jennings, who is one of my heroes, he stepped out of restaurants and has started an amazing hospitality business that's, geared toward the wellness of the people in the industry. He himself has been, gone through a tremendous transformation, and he, it's trading sort of meals for spin classes for people who work with and for him in the restaurants around there. And I always say to people, like, there is sliding scale, there is, trade-offs of all different kinds of ways, and you just have to think about it creatively.
People that work in restaurants have all the same problems that all human beings have.
I'd say, I'd also say there's my theory. Tell me if I'm wrong. The chicken and egg theory. I feel like there are a lot of people who maybe, they grow up, they realize that, 9 to 5 office job is not right for them. They maybe don't have a family structure that is super stable. There's a reason that they, are the kid who, starts working at a restaurant when they're as soon as it's legal in their state, and they find a community in the kitchen in a way that they might not have in their traditional, family format or something. And they find that, and then sometimes behaviors or tendencies might be exacerbated by the life of the kitchen, and things are cyclical.
I think there's definitely truth in everything you just said. I think sometimes some people that have the most to give in hospitality have many of their own personal challenges. Think of servers and bartenders as well as cooks, and but it's such a vast industry. I think I've been fortunate to be a part of all the kitchens I've really been a part of have been really good environments. But by virtue of how massive the industry is, there's just so many people.
Yeah.
And people are people. I mean, the industry, I think, is certainly responsible for part of the challenges that people face. But
there's some systemic stuff that's being
for sure. And not all. There's some great restaurants.
Absolutely.
And some that still have a lot of work to do. But if you wash dishes in a restaurant, you have parents because you exist in the world, and you may have kids or siblings, and you may have challenges with that part of your life.
Absolutely.
You may have physical or dietary or and just the same problems that anybody has, and maybe the environment you're in is stressful, and that contributes in it, and it's just people. I don't know. I'm always surprised. I think you can never assume that you know what's going on in someone else's life.
Oh, 1
when
billion
someone is
percent.
having a bad day, and you're like, well, "What's up with you?" and make fun of them, and it's like, "Well, actually," and that's I've learned that is just you just don't make your opinions ahead of time about somebody because you just don't know. And I think people that work in other industries may want to help the mental health of people that work in those industries, and that's for sure, a worthwhile endeavor. And for me and what we're doing, it's restaurants and hospitality, and so that's a passion for us, I guess.
Well, I bang the drum that customers need to know, guests need to know about. They need to give a crap about the people who work in the restaurants in the same way they do about how the chicken was raised. Really, it's I feel for, of course, kitchen people in a very fundamental way, but front of house people, I feel for them because they have to have a smile on their face and take care of people even if they're having the crappiest day on earth.
Yeah, I think most people are fun, and there's a handful of people that aren't so fun to maybe serve, and that's part of the business. And I don't know, we try to have the perspective of
you get to be
try to win everybody over.
Yeah.
Some people, Danny Meyer's a great quote that some people are happy when they're unhappy.
Yeah, some people love to complain.
It's like that's their happy place, is just like being unhappy.
But you can probably sense that when somebody walks in the door.
Yeah, you just kind of take it as a challenge to your hospitality of you take a step back and it's like, what can I do in this situation to turn this around? And in every situation, it's different. Sometimes it's just acknowledging that hey, the thing that we sent out for you, you didn't like, and we're so sorry about it, and you don't want anything else, but here I am, I'm the owner or the manager, and I really appreciate you being here, and I'm so sorry. And that's what they need. Or send them a dessert, or whatever. It's always different.
There's some emotional Tetris that is
emotional Tetris. I like that. I'm going to use that.
There's just so much that can go on there. But I do want to circle back to opening a restaurant. Seemed that I have dear friends who I have seen through that process, and there are a few things I can imagine that are more stressful because there are so many moving parts that you wouldn't even expect. I was talking to a friend yesterday who didn't realize you have to get these ramekins and you have to get the these licenses, and then you have to get all of a sudden the electricity, the person hasn't come to do that permit yet.
I mean, I had been fortunate, I guess, to be a partner of starting 2 other restaurants. So I had been through the whole process from architectural plans to buying plates to construction and doing a menu and a soft opening a few times. What was different about this place was I had to make the choice to I really wanted to do this project with all the same partners, and it just wasn't in the cards. And there was a choice that if I wanted to do it, I had to go do it, even if no one else was gonna be my partner.
Yeah.
And that was a really different feeling, and scary.
How did you deal with it? How did you take care of yourself?
Almost like in the decision to like make the offer to buy the property and then put the money down to like say like I have 90 days to come up with all the money to close in the contract and a bank loan and investors.
Yeah.
I like forced myself to do it from, like I mentioned, I was like, this is what I've been saying I've wanted to do my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. And what am I not going to do it because I'm scared?
Yeah.
Like I've been saying that this is what I've been working so hard for all this time.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to turn back. And I'm glad I didn't, because it worked out, but it was really stressful, especially the period of like trying to raise all the money to close on the initial purchase of a property. Was like you run out of time. If the contract expires and you're not there, like that's
boom.
the end. It worked out, and I learned a ton about myself, about the nitty gritty of like construction or all the different details of the actual work, but also about trying to get better at managing my own stress of like.
You said you got physically.
Yeah, I had an allergic reaction to antibiotic that I think combined with my stress. I got like the most severe allergic reaction you can have to antibiotic called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, where like
oh my gosh,
it's an autoimmune reaction to antibiotic where my whole body basically turned red, and the danger is that your skin can fall off, and then you're like like a burn degree victim all over your body.
Oh my God!
I went to the hospital for a few days.
You
and
have skin in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, you literally like.
Oh, my vision got screwed up for 3 months because it affects all the mucous membranes in your body, like your skin and the way your eyes secrete tears. And I'm lucky I don't have any permanent damage from.
Oh my God!
From my episode with that, but yeah, I went to the hospital, had great medical care, and they gave me steroids to reverse the allergic reaction I was having to the antibiotic. And luckily my skin did not fall off, although it was...
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
I think of myself as a professional stressor, and the thing is,
I need to read your book as well.
I wish I had a copy. I'm going to mail you a copy of my book. I mean, the thing is, like, I pick my own skin off. Sorry to be gross, but people who know me really well know that they can look at my thumbs, and if my thumbs are bleeding, that you can visual here. It's pretty. They heal up pretty quickly, but it's not great right now. They're a little scarry. There's some. It doesn't look awesome. People know that I turn my hands into hamburger when I am stressed, and I have had gut stuff. Sometimes it's like a rapid heartbeat, but like I have never heard of like the skin fall. I'm so glad that you are here. I was having
an allergic reaction to medicine, and then combined with like I was wound so tight.
Yeah.
Like having this be the first project I did, and no one does anything by myself, but I was outside of any partners. And like literally coming down to the wire of like, am I going to be able to finish all the legal documents with the investors and raise the money and finish everything with the bank, like in time to close with that, how fast that was approaching. And I was really stressed out, and that didn't help the allergic reaction that my body was having.
And is your wife in restaurants?
No.
Okay, so how did she deal with this?
We didn't know each other at that time.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay. So I didn't know the timeline on that.
Yeah.
So you met after this.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, how is your stress level now? And
I think the only person that really believed that this was going to work from the very beginning was Roxana, and Fermín maybe knew that it was.
Yeah.
I doubted everything.
Yeah, but you were dating,
do.
or you didn't know each other at this time?
Not at that time.
Okay, yeah.
We met after, and there was plenty of stress left to go around after we bought the property, but had to then come up with design and architectural plans and like design to a budget and buy all the kitchen equipment and hire all the people, and like there was plenty of stress left at that point. And
I need to do interviews with partners. I have a few, but
was pretty even keeled, and like definitely was a great support to like tell me like, no, it's gonna work, and like you're gonna do great, and like I think there's part of that kind of cathartic when you're communicating all your stress, where like you don't listen to it when people tell you it's gonna work, but it's nice to hear. And it was always like she never gave up on me or it, or like telling me that like it was gonna work. And I think a lot of people's traits can be strengths and weaknesses. And for me, it's like always doubting stuff and overthinking stuff is in some ways a strength, because, you know, you solve problems or are able to fix things or find good ideas. And in some ways a weakness, because sometimes I drive myself nuts or the people around me a little bit nuts. And like I'm working on that, and I think I'm more self-aware of that part of me than maybe I was before. And also, I think the stakes will never quite be that. I shouldn't say never. It's hard to imagine that they will feel that high to me than it was doing it for the first time, when it felt like I told myself, like, if this doesn't work, life will go on. If this place fails and I have to do something else, like, I will be able to do something else with my life. But I didn't want that feeling. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. I guess I just was very lucky to meet some really great people to work with. And I mean, I don't want to sound like I didn't believe we would do something good, because I absolutely did, but always a lot of self-doubt and, you know, along the way.
Yeah. Oh my God. You showed me a picture of your dog. Did you have the dog at the time?
No.
Okay. So the dog, because I know for me, my dogs are probably my biggest anti-anxiety thing, in addition to a little medication. But I mean, all it takes is one of them flipping over and showing me their belly. And
for sure. When people find out that I'm married to Roxana and she's born in Mexico, they kind of all make sense. They're like, oh, that's why you opened a Mexican restaurant. And the funny thing is that I was really down the path of being obsessed with masa and working on it before we met. But of course we share a passion for Mexico and Mexican food because I was, you know, doing this project. But, you know, she, very inspiring to me. And she was an industrial engineer in Mexico, working for Kraft Foods in Monterrey, Mexico, like in the cookie department, where they're like, all the cookies are made for America.
Oh my God.
And she left that job to start a little IT business with her brothers. And then the recession happened in 2008, and they folded the business. And her and her mom started a business selling crafts and things made by artisans in Mexico, mostly women in rural communities, selling on consignment to like festivals in the US and like Laredo and Chicago. And she started a business called Communal. And she was living in Colombia and applied for like a startup incubator for social entrepreneurship in Austin, and has an uncle that lives here, and applied and was like, okay, we accept you. And they gave her like $5,000 of seed capital, but they're like, but you have to move to Austin.
Yeah.
So she moved to Austin.
Oh my God.
And there was another girl who started a farm called La Flaca, which we buy a lot of stuff from for Suerte. And they were in the same program and invited us both to the same party, and we met at that party.
Oh,
a good story.
That is a really good story.
And Roxana was, she didn't so much work on like the design of the restaurant, like the fabric and all that stuff was people Fermín and I met before I knew Roxana, but she was instrumental and I would not have been able to achieve get logistically, like working with all these one-off artisans that make stuff in Mexico and organizing the purchase and logistics of shipping the stuff and getting it all done on time. Like, she worked really hard on helping all of that stuff.
That's and that's wonderful that you have that partnership and a
fun.
creative
we're
collaboration.
Back to Oaxaca in April, and we're gonna visit Graciela from Real Minero and La Chicharra, the woman who makes the ceramic plates. And I think my life is so much richer because I now have family in Mexico, and part of my life that I can kind of, I don't know, it's just like the world is bigger because of those relationships I have.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what would you tell 10 years ago Sam about what do you wish he knew?
That's a good question. I don't know. I always was pretty ambitious and pushing, and like I don't know if I'd tell him not to be like that or to like relax because it's gonna work out. Because like I don't know if it would have if I wasn't always like striving to get better and chase the dream. I don't know. You work on yourself, and then things fall into place when you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
And I'm still, doing my best to try to exercise more and be thoughtful about, what I eat or not getting too wound up with any thoughts in my own head about stress related to the business or anything else. So
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. So this is a question I ask everybody. And this is the Oprah part of it where, she sort of promoted the thing like The Secret, where I believe in saying things out loud to the universe. So somebody's going to find it and hear it. You, the first thing you did was shout out everybody else on the team and all the things they do, and you take care of them. What is the thing you want for yourself?
I don't know. I probably need to think more about that. Someone gave me that advice. They were like, write down the 3 goals that are most important to you, and that's homework that I still need to do, because I feel like if you figure that out about yourself, it'll kind of guide what things you say yes and no to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'd like to keep growing what we have. I mean, we're taking on another project, which I'm really excited about. Too early to talk about what the concept is going to be, but I'm excited to.
Please make me your first phone call.
I will, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to keep it going. Like, this has been a wild ride, and I think this is a really special place, and I just want to hold on to it and see like where it takes me and do something that is a good contribution to the world of food and people, that people are saying like, I'm glad that place exists.
So, okay, then let's leave a note for future Sam here. What do you think is the thing that would make you happy?
I mean, I think it's so much of everyone that works in this industry that works so hard. You identify yourself by the restaurant that you have or you're a part of, or the work that you do. But really also, we're all people outside of our work too. So I don't know. I'm happy because I love what I get to do at work. Like, I truly love every part of what I feel lucky I get to be a part of. I'm excited to travel with Roxana and see more of the world and never stop learning stuff. I think all those things will hopefully continue to make me happy.
Hey, future Sam, take note of this. So I have 5 questions I ask everybody. Here's this sort of speed round. I say speed round and people are like, whoa, I don't have to think about that question. What's your comfort food?
Jewish food, like bagels and stuff like that. I mean, I grew up around that, so I love that. I think Mexican food is certainly a comfort food for me now.
Is there a dish in particular that you're just like, like
I love pasta too. Like, I don't know. I'm naming too
You're
many.
You're a carb guy.
I roast a chicken almost once a week, and
best.
I've got a good method down.
What's your method?
You want it?
I do.
Okay, cool. So when I'm going around the farmer's market, I usually buy chicken from Richardson Farms. They do some great poultry, and I salt the bird inside the cavity on all the skin the day before, and let it sit in my refrigerator on a wire rack, like uncovered. And then the next day I make a compound butter with like whatever I've got, usually always with some microplane garlic and lemon zest and a little bit of herbs, maybe like chili flakes. And I put that under the skin of the chicken. And then I do a little bit of just a touch of oil on the outside, and I do it as low, however much time I have, I try to do it as low as possible. Because the thing about roasting a bird is like you want the breast and the leg to be cooked at the same time. Yeah. And then I'll start it with the breast side down, because the breast is what will dry out. So the legs up and like no trussing anything, just hanging out there. And so I'll do it at like, if I have the time, I'll do it at like 250 with the fan on, and let it go till it's like almost all, or like just all the way cooked, almost all the way cooked. Take it out of the oven, turn the heat up to like 375, and then flip it over with the breast side up, and then just try to get some color on the skin. Mm-hmm. And that's my deal. And I love roasting chicken, so
I'm coming over for chicken.
I would love that.
Oh my God, that sounds so good.
If you come back to Austin, please tell me. I would love to roast a chicken for you.
That sounds amazing. Oh my God. Next question. What is the last meal that you had that made you emotional?
Well, I just went to Tampico, Mexico, where Roxana's from, for her grandfather's funeral.
And
he
sorry.
was No, it was. There was a few sad moments, but it was really a great time to be with her family and to be together with folks. And we went to, there's a great seafood restaurant down there called Los Curicanes, and we went there with her mom and dad and brother, and it was just, I don't know, it was a great energy just between the five of us just having a bite to eat after this, ceremony of the funeral of her grandfather. So.
Oh, that's lovely.
I think restaurants can often be a place of comfort for people that they want to go to and enjoy to celebrate happy things or to feel comforted in times of loss. And that's a bit of a sacred thing that I think people in the industry get to be a part of,
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, what is the last meal that somebody cooked for you in their home?
Roxana probably. And does our home count or
nope.
another home?
Somebody else's house.
The one that I really remember is there's Raj Patel and his wife Minnie.
Oh yeah.
Had us over for dinner and they made Indian food.
Wow,
and that was outstanding and fun to be with them and a delicious food.
Wow. What did they make?
She made and I might not get all the names of the dishes that right, and see if I could. She made saag, which is like the sautéed greens.
Saag. Yeah.
There was a curry, I believe, with like lamb. There was basmati rice, and there was Indian whiskey.
Oh,
because
cool. I think and this is pure ignorance on my part, like Amrit is like the only like Indian spirit that I know of, and I'm sure it's a vast place.
If we can go to India sometime, let me know, because I want to be on that trip. I every time I get a
seriously?
window into like I think there's a similarity with and I should have mentioned this before when you asked me about Mexican food, how diverse the regional cooking of Mexico is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure India has this so much diversity too that I want to learn so much more about.
I have a person for you to talk to. I just sat down with Romy Gill, who is an incredible chef. She actually cooks in Brighton in England, but she is such a great champion of regional Indian food. I'm going to send you her list of restaurants that she sent me, like all over like different parts and outside of Bangladesh, outside of the Mumbai, like all the regular things. I'm going to send you her list.
Cool.
Next question. This is another putting it out to the universe in case this person is listening. What living musician would you want to cook for, and what would you cook for them? This is to draw them into you.
Wow. Living musician.
Yeah, because we had to do that. Otherwise, everybody's like Johnny Cash.
Can I take a pause to think through my mental ability to recall
it's funny that question stumps people. So I'm going to go to the next question.
Okay.
Then you have 5 uninterrupted minutes for self-care. What do you do?
Swim.
Really? Do you have where do you swim?
I swim at Deep Eddy. Austin has these 2 treasures of natural water, Barton Springs and Deep Eddy. Deep Eddy has lanes, so you can go there for exercise, and it's naturally fed spring water, so there's very little or no chlorine in the water, and it's just so refreshing in the summertime when it's 100 degrees out and there's just this cold water. And I find if I don't know what to do or I'm stuck and I can find the space or time to exercise, it always helps. Yeah. I'm not going to say it solves a problem, but it always helps. I always feel better
being in your body.
So if I have a chance to do that, that's just
Yeah. You're not off the hook for the musician question.
I know. I'm thinking about.
Yeah. What thing? I think what have I played more than anything else on my
one that I'm thinking about is, and I'm watching his documentary on Netflix, and Luis Miguel. Do you know who Luis Miguel is?
I do not. Please
He's
tell
a
me.
Mexican singer, and it's only available for Netflix Mexico.
Oh wow!
But you have to get someone that you know's account in Mexico or something that has Netflix and watch it. Luis Miguel is I'll make he's referred to as the son of Mexico.
Okay.
A little bit like the Michael Jackson of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
He started singing when he was just a boy, and is all of these amazing songs. I discovered his music because we went to a wedding in Nuevo Laredo for one of Roxana's friends. Nuevo Laredo is just on the border from Laredo, and we drove and crossed the border in our car and went to the Best Western. Typically in America, the Best Western is not like the best of hotels. The Best Western in Nuevo Laredo is one of the nicer hotels, and this wedding was like an absolute rager at the Best Western with total disregard for any guest sleeping, just like loud music. And they had a big projector, and they were projecting music from the 80s, which was like some of the golden times for Luis Miguel. And I was like, this guy is an absolute king, like on stage from the 80s singing these amazing songs. And like, I was like, who is this person? And I kind of rediscovered some of the music. I think he's playing in San Antonio this year, and
you have to go.
Laredo. I have to go,
and you have to cook.
But I would roast him a chicken. I wouldn't I would love for him to like come try Mexican food, but I think it'd be really fun. And the documentary about him is so compelling. He's had a very challenging life, and I would make roast chicken for Luis Miguel.
Oh my gosh, Luis Miguel, if you are listening to this, hit up Sam. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much to our guest today, Sam Hellman-Mass.
Thank you.
And
I'm so happy we got the chance to meet yesterday and to talk today.
It was fated, I think. So where can people find you on social?
The Instagram for Suerte is @SuerteTX. I don't do much with my personal account, so I'd say that's the best one.
So I guess you just have to come in here and meet him, meet Fermín, and meet the people in the kitchen making the incredible masa. And come on down. And you can find links. You're going to be able to find links to everything in the episode description. Thank you to our producers, Jennifer Martinick, Alicia Cabral, and Amy Frank. Thank you to Douglas Wagner for our delightful theme song. If you like what you heard, please tell a friend, write a review, or rate us. If there's something you'd like us to talk about or a guest you'd like to hear from, please let us know. And you can find me on Twitter @KittenWithAWhip. Find out more about the show and catch up on all the episodes at foodandwine.com and on Food and Wine's YouTube page. Thank you for listening, and take great care of yourself until next time.